A man rides a borrowed, unridden animal down the steep, chalky limestone slope of the Mount of Olives toward the eastern gate of a fortress city, the Adoration, and giving the people the political revolution they have been begging for since the Roman eagles first appeared in their temple. When you feel deeply threatened by the world, you do not want a weeping, afflicted king riding a beast of burden. You want a supreme commander. You want a deity who will march through the gates of your specific cultural moment, draw a sword, and publicly humiliate the people on the other side of the aisle. You want the chariots of Ephraim. You want the battle bow drawn tight, and you want it aimed directly at the people who make you feel unsafe. The desire for a political savior is not a relic of the ancient world. It is the default posture of the terrified human heart. We dress this impulse up in theological language. We call it taking a stand, or fighting for truth, or taking back the culture. But underneath the modern vocabulary, the demand is historically identical. You want the heavy boots. You want the blinding polish of the armor. You want the people who have wronged you, or the ideologies that terrify you, to be dragged through the streets in chains. You want the absolute, crushing security of the Roman triumph, just with a Christian label slapped on the side of the chariot. But Jesus refuses to ride your phantom warhorse. He refuses to pick up the weapons of the empire. But if you look closer, if you look at the specific animal his feet are almost dragging beside, if you look at the ancient script, because he knows that if you conquer by the sword, you are entirely bound to the sword. He knows that if he gives you the conqueror you are begging for, that conqueror would eventually have to turn his iron on you, because the line between the oppressor and the oppressed does not run down the middle of a geographical border. It runs straight down the center of your own chest. Zechariah saw this. The prophet, standing in the rubble 500 years earlier, knew that a new king with a new sword would just create a new pile of bodies. So the prophecy does not end with the breaking of the battle bow. In the very next verse, Zechariah reveals where this weeping king is actually going. He is not heading to the governor's palace to stage a coup. He is descending into a place where a sword is absolutely useless. The prophet looks past the broken bow. He looks past the silenced chariots. He looks down into the dirt. Zechariah chapter 9. Verse 11 shifts the entire focus of the prophecy. The voice of God speaks directly to the people. As for you, because of the blood of my covenant with you, I will free your prisoners from the waterless pit. He is deliberately enacting. If you look at the unsettling fact that as the crowd is screaming in absolute triumph, the man on the animal, a waterless pit in the ancient world is not a metaphor. It is a death sentence. It is a cistern carved deep into solid limestone bedrock. Rainwater flows in during the winter months. It dries up in the brutal summer heat. Mud hardens at the bottom. The air grows stagnant. When an ancient king wanted an enemy to vanish without wasting the edge of a sword, he dropped him down the narrow, bottleneck mouth of the cistern. The stone walls are perfectly smooth. The air is thick and suffocating. The darkness is absolute. You cannot dig out. You cannot climb out. You can only wait to die. This is not a political prison. It is the grave. The crowd waving palm branches in the first century wants Jesus to fight the Roman governor. They want him to break open the stone garrisons. They want a militant hero to free the political prisoners of Judea. They demand a localized victory. But Jesus is staging a cosmic jailbreak. Zechariah says, "The afflicted king is coming for a different set of captives. He is coming for the prisoners at the bottom of the waterless pit. He is coming for the dead," is openly weeping. You start to see something the standard coronation reading completely misses. This is not a victory parade. It is a funeral march. You cannot fight death with a warhorse. You cannot conquer the grave with an iron sword. You cannot defeat the ultimate enemy by shedding the blood of your political rivals. A Roman general conquers by putting his enemies in the ground. The weeping king conquers by taking their place in the dirt. That is why the prophecy specifically mentions the blood of the covenant. The blood is the only rope that reaches the bottom of the cistern. The blood is the only mechanism that shatters the limestone. The crowd screams for a warrior to kill the Romans. The king rides toward a cross to kill death. He knows the only way to empty the ultimate pit is to let himself be thrown directly into it. He must descend into the suffocating dark. He must hit the cold mud at the bottom. He must absorb the full weight of the empire's violence without striking back. But he does not go down into the dark empty-handed, because Zechariah 9 gives this king one final, definitive title, and it reveals the exact weapon he will use to break the prisoners out. The unridden animal takes another step down the chalky limestone slope. The noise of the screaming crowd presses against the rider like a physical weight. Thick and suffocating, he is not entering the city to start a war. He is entering the city to absorb one. The people throwing their coats in the dust. The massive stone gates of Jerusalem loom ahead, casting long, sharp shadows across the dry dirt of the Kidron Valley. The people are waiting for the battle cry. They are waiting for the piercing shout of a commander initiating a siege. But Jesus does not reach for a hilt. He does not signal for an uprising, because Zechariah chapter 9, verse 10 says, "This king will speak exactly one thing to the nations." The English translations usually say he will proclaim peace to a modern ear. Peace is a weak, passive word. It sounds like a mere absence of conflict. It sounds like a quiet afternoon, a polite ceasefire, a temporary pause where both armies just retreat to their tents to sharpen their spears. But the Hebrew word Zechariah wrote in the rubble of the ruined temple is shalom. Shalom is not just a quiet disposition. It is an aggressive, active force of healing. The root means to make complete, to restore what has been shattered, to take the pulverized fragments of a broken thing and painstakingly fuse them back together into something entirely whole. The weapon he carries is not an iron sword that severs. It is a spoken word that rebuilds. I think they are witnessing the beginning of a military coup. They have no idea that the man they are cheering is systematically dismantling their entire. A Roman general creates his version of peace by killing everyone who resists. He creates a wasteland and calls it tranquility. But the afflicted king creates shalom by absorbing the violence of the wasteland into his own body. He takes the brutal fracture of the world upon himself so that the prisoners stuck at the bottom of the pit can finally be put back together. If you are in a season where your life feels exactly like that waterless pit, if you are sitting in the dark, suffocating under the weight of a broken relationship, a terrifying diagnosis, or a faith that feels like it has been reduced to ash and blackened foundation stones, you do not need a phantom war horse. You do not need a general who will just hand you a heavy shield and demand that you fight your own way out of the dark. You need a king who is willing to weep over the wreckage. You need a God who is not afraid to step off the chariot, climb down into the absolute dirt, feel the cold mud of the cistern on his own skin, and pull you out of the dark by the blood of his own covenant. You need the Ani to bring you shalom, but to feel the absolute, staggering certainty of that promise, you have to zoom out. Definition of what power looks like. Jesus is staging a piece of political street theater. He is mocking the machinery of empire. And he is. You have to look back at the entire parade. And everything Zechariah saw. One last time. A crowd screamed for an iron sword and received a weeping prophet. A beast of burden walked down a steep slope and trampled the pride of a Roman triumph. A shattered city waited for a military general and met a king intimately acquainted with grief. The Ani absorbed the crushing violence of an empire and refused to strike back. A battle bow was snapped in two, and an active word of shalom took its place. A waterless pit suffocated the prisoners of the earth, and a blood covenant shattered its stone walls. A parade marched toward a violent political revolution and ended at a cross that conquered death itself. One parade, one prophecy, one terrifyingly beautiful king. But here is the part I keep coming back to. It is the tears. The loud, a convulsive wailing of a king looking at a city that completely misunderstood his heart. He could have turned the animal around. He could have called down the fire. He could have easily given them the phantom warhorse they wanted and let them choke on their own violence. But he rode down into the dust anyway, doing it by forcing his audience to remember a text they had forgotten. To feel the actual weight of this parade, to understand why he. If you are in a season where you are exhausted from fighting, where the people around you are demanding that you perform or dominate, or pick up a weapon you were never meant to carry, this parade is a place to sit. You do not have to be the conqueror. You do not have to ride the warhorse to prove that you are safe. And may the God who wept over the very people who were cheering for the wrong kingdom walk with you into your own darkest valleys and bring you a shalom that no earthly triumph could ever provide. If this reached something in you, subscribe. Leave a comment, even one word helps. Share this with someone who is exhausted from fighting battles they were never meant to win. Pray for us as we keep digging into these texts. Chose a beast of burden instead of a warhorse. You cannot start in the 1st century. You cannot start with the Roman guards watching from the fortress walls. You have to go back 500 years to a city covered in ash and a prophet standing in the rubble. The air smells of dry earth, sweat, and crushed green leaves. The noise is deafening. Men and women are tearing the cloaks off their own backs. A Roman triumph is not a celebration. It is a weapon. When a Roman general conquers a new territory, the Senate grants him the ultimate display of imperial dominance. A highly choreographed parade through the heart of the capital. The streets are swept clean. The air is choked with the smell of sweet incense. The crowds are pressed tightly against the stone walls. The procession starts. First come the spoils of war. Carts overflowing with gold pulled from burning temples. Silver dragged from foreign treasuries. Then come the prisoners. Conquered kings stumbling under the weight of iron chains. Captured soldiers marching toward the blood-soaked sand of the arena. Then come the legions. Thousands of men. Polished armor blinding in the sun. Spears held high. The rhythmic, terrifying sound of heavy boots hitting the pavement. And finally, the conqueror. He does not walk. He rides a gilded chariot. It is pulled by 4 massive, white war horses. He wears a purple toga. His face is painted red to mimic the supreme god Jupiter. A slave stands directly behind him, holding a golden crown over his head, whispering in his ear that he is only a mortal man. The noise is earth-shaking. The visual is overwhelming. The entire spectacle is designed to do exactly one thing: produce absolute terror. It tells every onlooker exactly where they stand in the hierarchy of the empire, throwing them onto the dirt to pave the way. They are ripping branches from palm trees, waving them like national flags, and screaming a word. The message is brutally clear: do not resist. Do not rebel. Rome is eternal, and Rome will crush you. This is the visual vocabulary of the 1st century world. This is what power looks like. A true king rides a warhorse. A true king holds an iron sword. A true king brings the chains. This is the exact expectation the crowd in Jerusalem is carrying as they wait for the Messiah. They want a Jewish version of a Roman general. They want a conqueror to ride in on a white stallion, slaughter the garrison, and paint the cobblestones with Roman blood. But the parade coming down the Mount of Olives dismantles every single element of that script. There is no looted gold. There are only dusty, sweat-stained cloaks. There are no captured kings. There are only impoverished fishermen and local peasants. There are no polished spears. There are only torn palm branches. There is no war horse. There is only a borrowed, unridden beast of burden. This is not an accident. It is an assassination of an idea. Jesus is staging an anti-triumph. He is taking the supreme symbol of military domination and exposing it as a fraud. He is telling the screaming crowd that the kingdom of heaven does not arrive on a chariot. But he did not invent this mockery on the spot. He is stepping directly into a prophecy that had been waiting in the dark for 5 centuries. That is not a polite greeting, but a desperate demand. Hosanna, save us now. They are looking at him, but they are seeing a ghost. A prophecy written by a man who knew exactly what it felt like to watch an empire burn his city to the ground. The year is 520 BC, and a young man named Zechariah is standing in a graveyard of stone. The city of Jerusalem is a ghost. The massive, gold-covered Temple of Solomon is gone, has reduced to blackened foundations and splintered cedar. The people who have returned from their long exile in Babylon are exhausted. They have blisters on their hands from trying to stack broken limestone back into walls that offer absolutely no protection. The wind howling through the valley carries the scent of pulverized rock and generations of defeat. They are a broken people, living in a broken city, wondering if the covenant is dead. They want a warrior to make them great again. They want an army to exact blood revenge on the empires that stripped them bare. But God does not send them a general. He sends them a man with night terrors. Zechariah begins to see things. In the dark, he sees horses patrolling a restless earth. He sees a high priest standing before the throne, clothed in garments covered in human filth. He sees a solid gold lampstand, fed endlessly by 2 living olive trees. He sees a flying scroll, and a woman trapped inside a lead basket, and 4 chariots rushing out from between mountains of bronze. The visions are dense. They are terrifying. They are heavy with the weight of cosmic justice. They are seeing the memory of King David. They are seeing the phantom of a warrior who will ride through those massive stone gates. And then, the apocalyptic imagery parts. The smoke clears, and Zechariah sees a single figure approaching the ruined city. He looks for a conquering hero. He looks for the polished armor of a new David. But the text he writes down in Zechariah chapter 9, verse 9, becomes the most staggering, counterintuitive political promise in the entire Old Testament. Rejoice greatly. Daughter Zion, shout. Daughter Jerusalem, see. Your king comes to you, righteous and victorious, lowly and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey. This is not a king who inflicts suffering. This is a king who absorbs it. He is arriving without a vanguard. He is riding the ancient equivalent of a rusted-out farm tractor. And the English translation usually describes this approaching monarch with words like lowly or humble or gentle. But those words are far too clean. They are too safe. They belong in a nursery rhyme, not a war zone. To understand who Zechariah actually saw riding through the dust, you have to look at the specific Hebrew word he used to describe the rider's condition. And that single ancient word changes the entire meaning of the tears Jesus wept on Palm Sunday. Zechariah chapter 9, verse 9. We read the English translations every spring, and they usually present a king who is gentle, or humble, or lowly. It paints a very safe, domesticated picture. We imagine a polite, soft-spoken monarch with perfect manners, who just happens to prefer riding a small donkey. Draw a sword of iron and bleed the Roman occupiers dry. This city knows parades. They know the sound of conquerors marching through their streets, instead of a towering stallion, but the original language is bleeding. The word our English Bibles soften into lowly is the Hebrew adjective ani. It appears 80 times in the Old Testament, and its historical weight is brutal. The noun form comes from the root verb anna, which means to be bowed down, to be afflicted, to be economically or physically crushed. Ani does not describe a wealthy man with a modest personality. It describes a peasant who has been utterly subjugated by a hostile power. It is the word used for the person who has a heavy boot pressing down on their neck. It is the word for the beggar with a hollow stomach sleeping on cold stone. It is the specific vocabulary used in the book of Exodus to describe the agonizing misery of the Israelite slaves making mud bricks under the cracking whips of Egyptian taskmasters. That root changes everything about the man riding the donkey. Zechariah is not prophesying a mild-mannered diplomat. He is seeing a battered, trauma-carrying sufferer. The crowd in Jerusalem wants a king to inflict pain on their enemies. But the prophet says the true king will be defined by his proximity to pain. His humility is not a polite disposition. It is an act of total solidarity with the crushed. They have seen the bronze armor of generals. the heavy war horses of empires, and the spears of legions catching the afternoon sun. If realizing what the original Hebrew actually says makes the text feel completely new to you, you're exactly who this channel is for. Drop a thought in the comments and hit subscribe, because every week we go deeper into the text than you knew was possible. So, the afflicted king. The Ani rides down the chalky slope of the Mount of Olives. The crowd is still screaming for Roman blood. They are aggressively waving palm branches, the historical symbol of the violent Maccabean revolt. The first-century equivalent of hoisting a rebel flag. They are demanding a king who will pick up the bow, draw the iron sword, and bring the terrifying machinery of war back to the city of David. But Zechariah's prophecy did not just predict the unridden animal the king would choose. The very next line of the ancient poem reveals exactly what this afflicted king is about to do to their weapons. The crowd screams. The palm branches wave. The dust chokes the hot air. They want an armory. But the king is disarming them. Look at the very next breath of Zechariah's prophecy. Verse 10. The prophet writes that this afflicted king will take away the chariots from Ephraim. He will banish the war horses from Jerusalem. He will take the battle bow, drawn tight for combat, and he will snap it in two. Same expectation, same desperate hope for violence. Again and again, most people read this scene, the event we now call Palm Sunday, and assume the people are begging for iron. He is bringing a sledgehammer to their weapons. They want to raise a militia. He is dismantling the military. They want to shed Roman blood. He wants to end the shedding of blood completely. Now, look closely at the man on the beast of burden. Look at his face. The men are beating their chests. The women are dancing in the dirt. The children are running ahead down the steep slope. The noise of the parade is absolute, deafening chaos. But the Ani, the crushed, afflicted king is weeping. The Gospel of Luke records the exact moment. He rounds the crest of the mount. The massive temple complex comes into full view. The afternoon sun blinds the eye off the white limestone and gold plates. The city looks invincible, and Jesus breaks down. The Greek word Luke uses is kleio. It does not mean a quiet, dignified tear rolling down a cheek. It means loud, convulsive, audible wailing. The crowd is shouting, "Hosanna." The king is sobbing in the saddle. This is not a general evaluating his troops. This is a prophet weeping over a graveyard. He knows exactly what happens when a people choose the sword. He knows that in exactly 40 years, the Romans they want to fight will return. He knows the legions will encircle those walls. They know exactly what is happening. They assume Jesus is finally stepping into the spotlight. They think he is accepting the crown. Leaning into, he knows they will starve the city, breach the massive stone gates, and burn that beautiful golden temple to the ground. He sees the future they are begging for, and it breaks his heart. He weeps because they want a conqueror, and he is a casualty. He weeps because they want to inflict trauma, and he is riding into the city to absorb it. He weeps because they are cheering for a war that will bury them. The crowd in the first century completely misread the animal. They ignored the second half of the ancient prophecy. They wanted the phantom warhorse. But the terrifying truth is that the crowd on the mountain is not dead. They just changed their clothes. You sit in traffic, white-knuckling the steering wheel. Or you lie awake staring at the harsh blue glare of a phone screen in the dark, and you feel the exact same pulse pounding in your chest. You look at the culture around you. You look at the ideological enemies you absolutely despise. You look at the institutions and systems that feel completely out of control, and you want exactly what the crowd on the Mount of Olives wanted. You want a chariot. You want a God of iron and vengeance.